Absolutely. All right.
Good for you. Okay. So, what we're going to do today with our Wednesday training, for a lot of people, this is going to be leveraged on replay over the course of the next couple of weeks. This is a workshop that I've rolled out with my team locally in South Jersey, and just think it's so important. I feel like there's so much intention and sort of accountability and responsibility that comes with working through the business planning process that I want to try to get to as many teams within Leaders Edge as possible to sort of get that message out and help you carve out the time and space in your day-to-day to give some attention and intention to your 2024 business plan. Our goal for today is to create sort of the part one. Hopefully you're here live, which is fantastic. But if you are not here live and you're catching this on replay, it's because you recognize that the best way to take advantage of the in-person workshop is to do a little bit of work up front. And what I'm here to do in this recording is share with you some tools, help you understand what the homework is before the workshop so that you can really, in those couple of hours that we might have together in person, make best use of that time and sort of do the fun part. So today is kind of like the icky part, if you will, or the less flavorful part to a lot of agents, but it's necessary and important. And that all revolves around the money. You need to understand the money in order to be able to build an effective business plan. The most important message, as I show you the tool that I will offer to you, and anybody who needs it will receive it. So if you are scheduled for any of the in-person events that we already have on the calendar, or if you would like to participate in those, you can certainly message me or drop your email in the chat, and I will make sure that you're going to get a copy of this template as soon as our training is over today. Or again, if you're watching it on recording, you can message me and I'll provide this template to you, but it's an important part of the work. If you take a look at my photo here, this is the message. Like, how many of us are either just, throwing money away or spending money in our businesses, but don't have the mechanism for tracking, whether it's giving us a return, feeling like we're blowing our nose into dollar bills sometimes, and not recognizing that there's got to be some sort of connection and understanding and ownership of the spend and ownership of the result too. Okay, so that's what we're going to tackle today. Most important thing as we set this groundwork and talk through this tool, the numbers themselves are not what's important. It's you knowing what the number is that matters. And so what do I mean by that? No one's going to be asked to share their numbers. Your numbers are personal to you. And it has to do with your commitment, your time, how much you need in your real estate business to be able to fund your day-to-day living and your activities, both within the business and outside of the business. And for some person, for one person working 40 or 50 hours a week compared to another person who's devoting 10, those numbers are going to be different, but there's no judgment in that. You knowing your numbers is what's important here. And that's the exercise that we're looking to tackle today in our training. So I'm going to share with you, this is the template that I will provide. And what I'm just going to do today is just talk through the template and how you might tackle it. And then again, you're going to get it. So the rest of the time that we might not spend in our training today, hopefully you'll devote to actually putting some numbers into this template and seeing how they play out, how the math looks for you and your business. Okay. I have to give full credit to the New Jersey Broker's Office because a couple of years ago, they actually shared the beginnings of this template. And I just sort of added some things and took it to the next level, maybe incorporated a little bit more automated math, automated calculation to make it a little bit easier for you as the agent to complete it. Okay. So one thing as we go through this exercise, keep in mind that anywhere that you see a yellow field in any of these pages, that's going to be a number that you're going to enter. Okay. And just to give you an idea, like as I scroll down, you'll see numbers like here, annual total, or here, monthly total. When you see these numbers that are not in yellow, those are numbers that are actually being calculated for you. Okay, so just concentrate on filling in the yellow pieces. So let's tackle the first part together. First part is understanding how much you spend month to month, both to manage the cost of your business and also to manage your personal expenses as well. Okay, so we'll just throw some numbers in there. And what I try to do
Is it on your screen?
can you see it?
No.
No, we see like your
Okay.
home screen.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks for letting me know. Let me go ahead and change that because yes, it is on my screen. Let's try it again. How about now?
Yes.
Yes.
You can see it and you see all the yellow. Okay, it's going to make a lot more sense now. Thank you for letting me know that. Okay, so again, anywhere that you see yellow, you're going to be entering a number. Okay, anywhere that you don't see yellow, but you see a number, that's a calculation. So here's a couple of examples here: monthly total, transaction total, annual total. Okay, so again, the first thing that we want to do, there are going to be 3 tabs when you receive this spreadsheet. First one's going to be expenses. Then we're going to go into production goals. And then there's even a third tab that sort of gets your brainstorming ideas going with maybe production activities. This is all sample right now, just to, again, help jumpstart your mind and give you an idea of a starting point. Let's start with our expenses. What we want to do is understand how much money is going out the door so we can sort of backtrack into how much money we need coming in. Okay, so let's throw in some numbers. And you'll notice if we take a look, like say at the monthly expenses, I really try to make sure that there's room for you to customize to special things that are happening in your life. So maybe there's a charity or a religious organization that you contribute to regularly that you want to include here. Maybe you have, activities for your children, or maybe there's a hobby that you participate in. Maybe there's a special insurance. Chris Walsh was talking about insurance yesterday. If there are things that you need to factor in, I try to make sure that this template gives you room for that customization with fields like these others. But let's go through. Let's just throw some numbers in there. So right now, when we talk about monthly expenses, we're talking, the way I would approach it is what's happening in your household. Okay. So let's say you have a mortgage, car payment seems reasonable. Maybe you're spending $300 on gas, and just remind everybody to mute. And maybe you have car maintenance. Maybe that's high for a monthly number. So maybe I'll adjust that. Car insurance. Hopefully we have good drivers. You have your homeowner's insurance, electric and gas bill, cable bill, internet bill. If you have a phone bill, if you have a cell phone bill, include that. If you pay water or utilities, your food costs for your family, whatever that might be. Again, just try to think of your household expense. On the back end, as we continue through these numbers, we'll account for sort of maybe other incomes that are coming into the home. For now, you just want to understand all the money that you need to send out the door. If you want to contribute to travel, or if you do any type of traveling and need to allot for that, there's a spot. Childcare, I'm going to put a 0 there because I think I've finally graduated from childcare needs after a whole lot of years. So I'm going to put a 0 there. Savings, we're incorporating savings into our monthly mindset. So hopefully that's something that you as well will contribute thought and intention to in building out your monthly expenses. How much do you spend for health insurance? Here's another spot for phones. So maybe this is house phone. So maybe I'll get rid of my house phone, just keep my cell phone here. If you have any other type of loan payments, maybe it's an installment loan, maybe there's a solar panel loan, a student loan, you can factor that in. If you pay monthly on credit cards, and if you have other expenses, if leisure and if leisure and time away is important to you, or being able to participate in social activities, if any of those things are important to you, then again, consider entering that information as an other item and factor it in. Make room for that, because this is as much about you covering your bills and it's as much about you enjoying the life that you live as it is making sure that you're covering your monthly expenses. Okay. So if you take a look with all those things, it comes up with a monthly total. Again, not yellow. So the math is being done for us. Now let's take a look specifically at what's going on within our business, because obviously it costs money to be a real estate agent. So what are those costs and fees? Well, you know what your realtor board dues are, and those bills are coming due. So let's add that number in for your annual outlay. If you have MLS dues and subscription, factor that in. This year, 2024, is not a renewal year, so I'm going to go ahead and give myself credit for that. Depending on where you are, I'm on the assumption that everybody that I'm going to be working with over the next couple of weeks is with EXP. So you're paying E&O transactionally, not through, an upfront bill. But nonetheless, I do have it included up here because I know that the maximum outlay that I would pay in 24 is the $500. Another expense I'm factoring in is that $85 a month, which I'm going to pay no matter what, right? Memberships, if I belong to any chambers, any networking groups, if I am involved in any online memberships, any other, if I have a secondary board, if I belong to additional MLSs even, I might want to add those things here. Also, if you have any type of coaching or mentorship that you're receiving on a regular basis, that's a monthly cost for you. You would want to factor that in here. I reference print and digital media. How much money are you spending in each of those? And again, this is not about judgment. This is not about needing to have a number in every spot. This tool is designed for you to customize to your business. So if you're not in print media at all, then just go ahead and make sure that that number is 0. If you spend a lot of money to travel and meet agents in different parts of the state in order to be able to create a great referral network, then factor that in as an expense of your business. Okay, just ask yourself the question, where do you spend money to get your real estate business? Okay. Again, everything that you enter here is going to total to the annual total here. And then step 3, the last thing that we want to sort of give thought to is, what are we spending transactionally? What are the costs that we incur each time we have a new transaction? Now, some of these, you could take it even more in depth and say, how much do I spend for each listing transaction? How much do I spend for each buyer transaction? I think at that point, well, what I'll tell you is I'm going to give everybody an A+ if they can just handle this much, because almost every agent that I talk to, this is not a fun exercise. So just getting to this point and having a reasonable set of numbers to work from, you've hit the mark. You've done the work and you deserve full credit for that. So let's not try to overcomplicate it. Okay. But it is good to know about how much you might spend each time you have a new transaction or a new client. So if you're getting photos, if it's a listing, are you boosting the listing? Remember, there are transactional fees if you're an EXP agent. Same thing if you're with another brokerage and you're saying this, consider transactional fees there. I went ahead, for me, I wanted to factor in that full E&O up at the top as an annual expense, so I don't want to double count it. So I'm going to go ahead and remove it here. Okay. So now I have an idea in these 3 categories: my total monthly living expenses, my annual business expenses, and then my per transaction expenses. Okay. Anybody have any thoughts on that so far? Are you already feeling a little uncomfortable in your seats? It's not the easiest thing, but it's important, really important.
So far, it's good.
So far, so good. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Now the math is going to get really interesting. And what I like about this second template is that it's going to take some of the work that you did on the first one. It's going to ask you for some information, but then it's going to do a lot of the work for you. Okay. So here in this next section, you'll see I have steps 4, 5, 6, and 7. Let's figure out in step 4 what our annual cost of living is. Okay. So here we have 9,000. Notice that it's not yellow. That's because it's automatically going to pull from the page before that we came up with that 9,000. So you don't have to enter a number there. And it's going to do the math and tell us that we need $108,000 in order to fund our living expenses. Then we're going to factor in our business expenses. Again, not yellow. That's because it's pulling in from the prior page. So you're set there. The last thing that you just want to factor in is your projected transactional expenses. This one's a little bit soft. Again, it's not going to be super precise because sometimes these costs might apply, sometimes they might not. But what I might say is, okay, broadly, I'm anticipating that my numbers might work out to, say, 20 transactions a year. So maybe I'll give myself some breathing room and say that I'll incur $450 across 10 transactions a year. Okay. So in this space that's yellow, I'm going to take this number, the 450, and I'm going to go ahead and let's say multiply it by 10 to get me the 4,500. Does that make sense? And use a number that's reasonable. If you're heavy in listings, maybe you only take listings and you refer out all of your buyers, then you might see more than half of your broad transaction count incurring these expenses. So maybe you go high. So if you were looking at 20 listings a year, maybe you do 450 times 18 or 19 because you expect most of those 20 to all be on the list side. Okay, just trying to get to a reasonable number. So here you have your annual cost of living, just shy of $120,000. Now, next in step 5, we're going to think about that 119, 168, and we're going to say, what do I now need to take home? What does my take home income need to look like? If you're the sole source of income in your home, then you want to make sure that the number that you put here in step 5 covers that full nut that you came up with in step 4. If you're in a household that has multiple sources of income, or maybe you have multiple sources of income, say a primary job and a secondary, here, what you want to decide is how much do I need to bring home from my real estate business to impact and cover that 119? So let's say, just for argument's sake, it's 50%. Okay, so I'm going to put in, I don't want to put it in my formula section. I'm going to come down here to 160 and I'm just going to change that to 60,000. Okay, again, this is you customizing to whatever your circumstances in your home. Maybe you have other sources of income that aren't salary related. Maybe you're receiving alimony. Maybe you're receiving Social Security, disability. There could be a lot of other things in play. So again, the number that goes here is specifically what you want your real estate business to cover to keep that annual cost of living funded. Okay. Going on to step 6, factor in your the tax effect of what you're earning. So again, this 60,000 is not yellow because it's pulling from what you decided on in step 5, but you want to enter your tax rate. Again, something personal to you. Let's just go with the example of 30%. So what does that tell us? If I need to account for the taxes that I'm likely to pay on these earnings, then what I really need to do is earn about $85,000, $86,000 in real estate in order to get to that 60,000 number that I want to take home. So you'll see how a lot of this math is working out the numbers for you and oftentimes factoring in things that we don't readily think about. So now let's move on to step 7, your target take home. So once we've figured in the tax effect, you also want to remember that you have a cap to the company, right? If you're on a $4,000, $8,000, $16,000 cap, you want to enter whatever that is here. So let's say a $4,000 cap, and whatever your team split is, you want to add that in as well. Let's just say, for argument's sake, you're at 25%. So this becomes your target taxable take-home income. Okay, so that materially speaking, we have figured in covering our taxes. We have figured in covering all of our brokerage obligations. And now, in order to get to that point where we can cover half of our monthly living expenses, we want to log $106,000 in taxable take-home income. Okay. So now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty. Now that we know what that number is, how do we translate that into sales? How do we actually get to the point where we can talk about, all right, this is how many sellers I should be targeting next year, and this is how many buyers I should be targeting next year. Okay. So we're going to take that 106,000 and we're going to move on to steps 8 and 9. Step 8 is going to pull that number in, and now you have to come up with a number working on averages. I understand that in some cases it may be more, some cases it may be less. And of course, every commission is negotiable. So I'm not for a second suggesting that you have a set commission rate that isn't subject to negotiation with every client and every transaction. But we need to come up with an average in order to make this budget a working, living, breathing resource. Okay. So let's say for me, 2.5 is reasonable. Okay. So if I'm trying to get to 106,000, then now I know that my sales volume for 24 needs to be about 4.2, 4.3 million. Okay. How many of you have done that work before, that you understand how much you want to earn? So you've backed into what your sales volume needs to be. A lot of agents are not doing that, are not sort of making that correlation. So that's what I hope you'll see this tool will do for you. From there, step 9, let's take a look at, all right, if I need to hit 4.2 million, what is my average sales price in my market? In some markets, it may be 100,000, 150,000, especially if you're doing a lot with investors or if you're doing REO work, right? Different parts of the state are going to see different sales price averages. So let's say in the market that we're in, let's say I put that number, maybe I'm in Central Jersey or down by the shore. Let's say my average price point is 500,000. Okay. So now I've gotten to the point where I've gotten from knowing what my expenses are, what bills I need to pay every month, to now identifying that I need to close 8 transactions, averaging a 2.5% commission and a $500,000 sales price to cover those expenses. Okay. Now we're going to take it one step further and get even a little bit more granular. Okay. I have 8 transactions. If you take a look here, steps 10, 11, 12, and 13 are bundled together. You have 8 transactions total as your target. So in steps 10 and 11, we're going to decide how much of that is likely to be buyers and how much of that is sellers. Again, this is going to depend a lot on you, your business, your sphere, your funnels. Where are you drawing and attracting your business? If you're working with a lot of buyer lead sources, then you're going to be very heavily moving towards buyers. This also, as you reflect, is not just about sort of where you've been, but if you part of your business plan for 24 might be to pivot, that maybe you've spent a lot of time working with buyers and you want to be able to pull more sellers into your business plan and rely on more listings to get to those numbers. So think about that. The plan process, the action items are going to come when we meet together in person. But this part is just about trying to get the numbers to help you fuel that action plan, if you will. So let's say I am in that position that maybe I've been 65% in buyers, but maybe I want to see that change in 24. And maybe I want to do 65% sellers, 35% buyers. Or maybe I need to be a little bit more realistic and say, let me just try to get to the point where I'm 50-50. Okay. Close 4 listings, 4 buyer side transactions. Once you have those numbers in place, so again, with steps 10 and 11, ideally, those are going to total 100%. The other thing that this model doesn't factor in is if you have yet another source of income. So maybe that's revenue share, maybe that's mentorship, maybe that's referrals. If you do a lot of referrals to other parts of the country, then you'll definitely want to give credit for that and factor that in. But where you'll probably factor that in is a little bit further up to the top, where we went from this 119 number to this 60,000 number. Okay. One of the things that you should probably do from an accountability standpoint is when you look at the 119 and then say 60,000 needs to come from my real estate business, it might be good to put to paper, even over here on the side of the template, where is the rest of the money coming from? Do I need to get $10,000 from referrals? Do I need to get $5,000 from revenue share next year? Is that other 60,000 coming from another salary stream from my full-time job or from my spouse or partner's full-time job? Make sure that you're documenting all of that and understand how you're getting from point A to point B. Okay. So let's go back to where we were 10, 11, 12, and 13, these steps at the transactional level. So we've identified that we want to target 4 listings, 4 buyer transactions for next year. Now what we need to do is take it even one step further and recognize that not every listing or every buyer that we work with is going to convert. Okay. So if we need to hit 4 and we tend to have 80% success with our seller clients, then I actually need to secure 5 listings with the expectation that 4 of them will actually sell. Okay. You can change that number. Maybe if you feel like, particularly in this market, that if you're able to secure 4 listings, that 100% of those listings will close and you have that level of confidence, then you only need to target 4 transactions. Maybe on the flip side of that, the market that you're in or the time that we're in, it might be less, only 75%. So you determine what you believe your percentage of success. Let's be super aggressive and say that we're going to hit 100%. Every listing that we get, we're going to close. But let's say we know the challenges that are happening in the buyer's market, and we don't anticipate that to ease up, at least not through maybe the first quarter or even potentially into the second quarter of 24. So maybe I'm going to keep the percentage of success pretty low at 40 or 50%. That means that I have to be working with 8 buyers in order to project that I can get 4 of them to the finish line. Okay, does that make sense? So the idea here, go ahead. So I have a question.
Oh, no, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
The idea here is that you're trying to build out numbers that now when we sit down and talk about the meat and potatoes of your business plan, you have something to rely on and lean into. All too often, I sit down with agents and talk about, what's your goal, what's your business plan? And this part is unknown. These numbers are foreign and unfamiliar. Every once in a while, you'll get an agent who's super in tune, super focused, and sort of hyper alert, if you will, about what these numbers look like. But most times that's just not the case. And so the goal of going through this workshop is to bring attention to these things. Usually we don't like to face them because it feels uncomfortable. It's maybe a little bit unpleasant. But I go back to, what I said at the beginning. The knowledge of the information is what's so important. The knowledge of the number, understanding what you need, and understanding what your commitment level is to your business have to be tied together. They have to make cohesive sense. And this is a great starting point, a great beginning tool. The last section of this tool is production. Now, really, for steps 15 and 16, I'm going to tell you, spend very little time on this because this is when we're really going to sort of dive into the meat and potatoes of what your business planning goals are for 2024. But this is just give you some ideas with brainstorming while we're on the topic of numbers. When you think of your lead generation activities, I encourage you to create separate buckets here, just brainstorming, not committed to anything, not signing up for anything, but just think of maybe 3 to 4 no cost, 3 to 4 low cost, and 3 to 4 high cost activities that you might partake in that would help you, number one, achieve these production numbers, right? Get in front of this many sellers and buyers to then convert them, to then close them, to then pay your bills. But also, in addition to making sure that you're covering the cost, make sure that you are identifying activities that appeal to you, okay? That makes sense for you, that you would enjoy. If you put something on here that you absolutely dread doing, I can tell you your commitment level right off the bat will diminish when we talk about business plan and accountability for that plan throughout the course of the year. Okay. So again, just some brainstorming ideas, no commitment at this point. And the other thing, if there are, again, other sources of revenue, if you wanted to document it on the previous page or wanted to document it here, I think it's important that you put that somewhere. So if you're looking to get certified in REO, if you are looking to break into mentorship and see that as a great opportunity to teach other agents and, benefit financially when they close transactions, factor that in somewhere, put that on paper. The idea, again, of this resource is to start putting these things on paper to help you see the vision for your business and help give you a guide map, a roadmap for how to navigate 2024 and the decisions that you make on how your business will be run moving forward. Okay. So again, the idea here is just to give you an overview of this resource, but then to ultimately put it in your hands to make sure that you can take some time to reflect on it. I'm going to be in South River on Friday, and we'll see a bunch of Platinum Realtors agents there. I will be in Red Bank on the 27th. And then, as I mentioned to Veronica at the beginning, I'm really hoping to get into Somerville too. If you are interested in participating in that in-person business planning and those 3 locations don't work for you, let me know, because I think this is so important that I would absolutely be happy to sort of layer on maybe another Zoom or some additional visits to other team offices as well, if there was value in it. But again, the most important thing I can emphasize is put in this work. When we do meet in person in the workshops, you're not going to be asked to put these numbers on display. They're absolutely personal to you. But what I want you to do is make sure that you do the work up front to understand what your numbers were for this year and to have a reasonable expectation of what your numbers need to be for next year. And then when we meet, like I said, that's when the exciting part really kicks in and we get to sort of do the fun and more creative part of business planning. Okay. So again, I'm just going to make sure, if you can, drop your email in the chat. If you are already registered for one of the in-person events, you will also automatically, as soon as we conclude today, get this template in your email. And if you have any questions when you go back to fill it out, let me know. But when you download it, you can either download it in Excel or you can also download it in Google Sheets. Either place would work. Or if you have another spreadsheet program, it should be compatible and shouldn't give you an issue. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about how the tool works or how you might factor something in that we didn't address if you have a unique circumstance?
Diana?
Yeah, a quick one.
Hi.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I just have a
Yeah,
quick
go ahead.
question.
Yeah.
Real quick. For the people that are coming in person to my office on Friday, is there anything that they need to bring or just show up?
That's a great question. So what I would encourage is to just, on one sheet of paper, once you've gone through this tool, is maybe just jot down, what your goals are, what your target goals are, how many listings, how many buyers that you want to have working with. I don't even need any of these numbers. You don't have to factor those in. If you get to the point where you've done that work ahead of time and you have sort of those targets in place, everything that we're going to do on the in-person workshop will be provided to you other than that. So you'll have all of the work pages and we'll go through step by step. And there's time, the way that I do the workshop, it builds in time for you to actually sit and reflect on different steps so that by the time the 2 hours is over, you've taken the tools that I've put in front of you and you have a working, breathing business plan in development. And then we even at the end talk about how we're going to factor in accountability so it doesn't just go home and get thrown in a drawer until next November. So we kind of make sure to take care of everything. Yeah. So only those 2 target numbers.
Okay, good. And I was going to say also, if there's anyone here on the Zoom that is not with, my team or that's not with, let's say the leaders where they're going to be going there next week, if you wanted to come to this workshop on Friday at my office, you're welcome to attend. You can just reach out to me or message Deanna and we can set that up too.
That's great. Thank you, Jean. Appreciate that. And I know Christian would say the same thing too for the Red Bank presentation. So so this is the only work that you need to do ahead of time. Write those 2 numbers on a piece of paper. And then I hope to see you in person. If for some reason you can't attend any of the in-person workshops, when you get this tool from me, feel free to, just respond back and just ask how we might be able to connect so that I can help you put your business plan in place. Just because you can't maybe get to one of those locations doesn't mean that you shouldn't keep this moving. I just can't stress enough how valuable I think this is, how necessary I think it is, and how many agents don't do it. Just don't put the effort in. This speaks a whole lot to intention and focus and motivation for the coming year. So I look forward to seeing people in person too, because there's some people that I've, like Lynette, I don't think Lynette and I could hug fast enough because it was just so great to see her in person. And I really look forward to that too, as another level of like an added benefit with some of these in-person workshops. So get going on your numbers. Within a few minutes from now, you're going to get that email from me. And I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody in the next couple of weeks. Okay. All right, great. If I don't see you, and if I don't see you at our training next week, have a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving, everybody. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank
Deanna.
you, Deanna.
Thank you,
Sure
Jana.
thing. Sure thing. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.